I have an exercise that I really like for both breathing, specifically breathing into the back of the rib cage, starting to find the movement there, as well as shoulder stability, specifically scapular stability, which is your shoulder blade. And your shoulder blade and your rib cage interact with each other, right? It's not quite a real joint, but the scapula and the rib cage articulate with each other. So if you're having some stuff around the shoulder blade, likely the rib cage is also involved in their relationship. This can be really helpful for on the shoulder side if you do a lot of plank pose. We're targeting the serratus anterior muscle, which fans around the rib cage here and stabilizes the shoulder blade against the rib cage. Very useful for any pushing type motions or if you're in that position a lot. And then if you tend to be more in the camp that's always extended, these back muscles are always working, and you think you have really good posture being super upright, oftentimes this restricts our ability to expand the back, and we hold a lot of tension in that position. So bringing the curvature back to the thoracic, the mid-spine, has also benefited this exercise. You'll find a seated position where you can have a relatively neutral spine, so not so much rounded back and not so much puffed forward. So that could be cross-legged. I find kneeling is a better place for me. Maybe a block underneath the hips, seated in a chair, standing, anything works great. And then you'll take your band. You can use something less elastic, but I find the elasticity really feels more useful in this shape. So you'll loop the band around you and take it around the lower ribs first. Right, you'll take the band in your hands, and then with the palms facing forward, you're gonna push forward in space. Now you'll notice that if you just let the back go, it's gonna pull you more into extension. So we have the resistance here to pull back against. So just that might feel like a lot of work to resist the pull of the strap or the band and come back into more of a neutral spine and the rounding of the thoracic spine. But we're gonna pair this with breath, right? So as you inhale, you'll think of pressing back into the band. And as you exhale, gently feel the front ribs pull in. Right, inhale is pressing back to the band. Exhale, front belly, front ribs, gently draw in. Right, without squeezing, without too much tension, just softening down. Right, and already I'm feeling a good amount of fatigue in the arms. If that's the case for you and you want to do a few more rounds, you might lighten the grip on the band so there's a little bit less resistance and it's easier to hold out. If you want more resistance, right, you can tighten up your grip and push. My band already slid up a little bit, but you can do this at different levels. First at the lower rib cage, you can take it up to the mid rib cage and find that expansion, and then you can take it up to kind of just underneath the armpit and try to feel the expansion into the upper back. And you might notice that some of those areas feel more challenging than others to create that expansion. So good to play around with all of them. If this is feeling pretty good, or over time if you start to feel like it's less challenging and you want to try something different, especially if you're practicing yoga, doing some chaturangas or push-ups, what we can add on here is inhale, pressing into the upper back, and then exhale, front ribs still draw in, but then you'll also add a bend to the elbows really slow, right? The more time under tension you can create, the more resistance you'll create. Then inhale, push into the upper back, push the band away, and then exhale, front ribs still come in, and you'll slowly draw the hands in. And depending on where you take your push-ups, right, the elbows might draw straight in towards the sides, they might wing out a little bit, or they can even widen a little bit further. And the palms don't necessarily have to be open like this. You can just make fists and go back, but especially if you're working this from the idea of this can transfer to plank, I just find that I have more energy outwards with the palms. But the next time you do try a plank, I'd suggest imagining that band, right? And so your inhale is into the upper back, and the exhale draws the front body in. So when you add in a bend to the elbows, right, the belly isn't moving down, the spine isn't collapsing, and the shoulder blades aren't sinking. You have all that integration and feedback from the band to apply to those activities.